statements are not intended to be a promise or guarantee of future delivery of products, services, or features, but reflect our current plans, which may change. You shouldn't make a purchasing decision on anything we talk about today during the webcast, and we don't incur any obligation to update these statements if things change on our end. So basically all we're saying is if we say we're thinking about working on something, we're probably thinking about working on it, we just can't commit to when that might actually occur in product or when you might see that as an end user. So just a little bit there. Again, just to reinforce, this is we don't have the phone lines open, unfortunately, due to the audience size, but this is a two-way conversation. So we want to hear your questions. We want to interact with you as much as we can. The more questions you ask, the better. Me and Nigel have some content prepared today. If we get through it all, great. If we don't, because there's a number of questions, that's even better. So ask questions as we go, and we'll try and get you answers as best we can. And if we have to, we'll follow up after with follow-ups if they're in more detail than we can get to today. So with that, we're actually going to start in reverse order. We're going to go roundabouts, then roads. So Nigel, I will let you change over to being presenter, and you can do a little intro, who you are, and show the users what roundabouts are all about.
Oh, can you say, change presenter? Okay. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yep, you're good, Nigel.
Okay, I am Nigel Peters. I am currently calling in from the UK, so bear with me. I am British, so unlike the rest of you guys, you drive on the right, we drive on the correct side of the road, so I might make the odd mistake there. I might also call the sidewalk pavement, etc. Just live with it. Sorry. The terms used in civil engineering are generally the same, but there are a few oddities. The product I'm showing here, this is a little model of Manchester, just north. I'm currently showing an area just north of the Autodesk office in Manchester. And this version of InfraWorks is 16.4, so it's the current release of InfraWorks. So what I'm demonstrating is in the current release. So I'm just going to cover roundabouts. So in the last couple of releases, we've added roundabouts and a little bit of functionality on roundabouts. The engine that we're using is the vehicle tracking roundabout engine. So the calculation mode is tried and trusted in vehicle tracking, and we've imported it into InfraWorks. But the idea of the solution in InfraWorks is to make it as easy as possible to use. And basically, this is the third release which we've had roundabouts in, and we're improving it with each release. So how do you use a roundabout? Any design road intersection can be converted into a roundabout. It can be converted either by selecting on the intersection and clicking the roundabout button, or by right-clicking the intersection and do convert to roundabout. When it converts, it will use a default roundabout. If you are based in using an American road design standard, it will be based on an AASHTO roundabout. If you are in the UK, it will be based on a British standard. So right-click, convert to roundabout. It is just immediately converted to a roundabout. This particular roundabout, the default in the standard is a Fredway Highways Roundabout Informational Guide 2010 Rural Double Lane Roundabout, which is a little bit too large for this use case where we're in the middle of a small housing estate. So this would actually be better off being a mini roundabout. Again, as simple as that, you just select the standard you want. We ship within product with 2010 and the 2000 handbooks roundabouts. The roundabout itself consists of 4 arms. This particular case, because it was a large roundabout when it started, the arms are a little bit too long, so you just pick up the gizmo and adjust the arm to the length you want. The roundabout will immediately recalculate and regenerate. If I can select it. Okay, zooming in. Now, most of the values are defined by the standard. There are default values for the diameter of the roundabout, the size of the island, the size of the apron. On a mini roundabout, of course, you do not have an island, you just have an apron area in the middle and a circular ICD. Again, you can adjust it to be a more appropriate size for your current situation. You can adjust the apron size, the island size, and the ICD. You can also, unlike intersections, you can adjust the center location of the roundabout. This allows you to avoid buildings. So if I do an example in a second in a built-up area, I can move the center of the roundabout outside the natural crossing point of the road and make it such that the layout works for you. Changing the center of the roundabout also means that you're adjusting the speed and other factors that make the roundabout slightly more safe. But at the moment in InfraWorks, the main use is for adjusting it so that you no longer hit a building. If you go to a profile view, you can adjust the height of the roundabout. It's quite common that roundabouts are set slightly higher up, again to discourage drivers or force drivers or encourage drivers to slow down. Roundabouts have a massive improvement on safety over crossroads or four-way stops and have a larger capacity, so more vehicles per hour can drive through a roundabout. But one of the things that makes them more safe and higher capacity is to force drivers to slow down. So merging vehicles going around the roundel area are traveling at about the same speed of those joining. So if you can make your roundabout design feel slightly unsafe, you can increase capacity and safety. The other feature that we've got is you can adjust what's called the tilted plane. Roundabouts, to allow drainage, it is nearly always the case that a roundabout will have one side is higher than the other to encourage drainage to go down to a single drain point on the roundel. And in the current model, you can adjust the tilted plane and the direction it points in. So that is basically the roundabout feature. If you go to somewhere else in the model, sorry, again, convert to roundabout. So the settings we have are currently that you can set are inscribed circle, the apron width, the island rip, the intersection offset. So this is the offset from the natural crossing point, total number of lanes, tilted plane slope, and tilted plane bearing. Again, if you edit like all InfraWorks objects, I'm trying to get to the point where I can edit it. If you adjust the intersection object or the controlling road, the roundabout will move. Are there any questions?
Sorry, I was double muted. Can you hear me now, Nigel?
Okay, right, yes, I can hear you. Have we got any questions coming?
Yeah, there are. So the first one is around invalid geometry warnings. So are those available in InfraWorks like they are for Civil 3D vehicle tracking?
Not in the current release. We are looking at a way of doing it, but we don't know when it's going to happen.
Okay. So let me scroll back up here and ask a couple more. So somebody else is asking, are roundabouts limited today to tilted plane only, or can we do a Stockdale calculation?
Design roads, you only have tilted plane because the design roads don't have super elevation or crossfall on them.
Okay. Next one focuses on roundabouts with traffic simulation. Is that hooked up yet?
Yes, you can run traffic simulation through roundabouts. It does an approximation of the lanes at the moment, but they do work.
So that's a yes. Was that new in this current release, Nigel? I think it was, right? The release that we're using, that was the first version.
2017.1 it is new.
Oh, okay.
16.4, yes, supported it.
Yeah, okay. And then we have a question, is there a way to set the default standard style of a roundabout?
Currently, no. It picks up the style of the incoming roads and reflects that, but the island and the apron area is hard-coded to green, grass, and a brick.
Okay. All right. Good to know. And then somebody else, Edward, is asking about other roundabout standard support. So I know you and I have talked about this, Nigel. Maybe you want to talk a little bit about the other standards.
Right. So with the product, we currently ship support for DMRB, which is the UK, and AASHTO. If you have the vehicle tracking product, you can use its vehicle tracking libraries if you set up the clip file in a similar way as the AASHTO or DMRB clip file is set up. But it's a manual process and you have to do it fairly carefully. But it is possible to use any shipped vehicle tracking library with the current product. So the standard it uses and the vehicle tracking library file format it uses are the same as the shipped vehicle tracking product.
Alrighty. And then somebody's asking about a multi-lane roundabout, Nigel. I mean, I know it's not going to fit here, but maybe do you want to put a multi-lane down just to show the difference in model?
It's probably not going to fit, but very quickly, lanes forward. Come on. So that's a two-lane roundabout. It's coming. Two lanes are coming in, going around the roundabout. Does that?
Yep.
So any arm can be 2 or 3 lanes.
Yep. Yeah. So based on the incoming lanes and what the particular standard is selected.
The rules are it will make the roundel have the same number of lanes as the maximum lanes on an incoming road.
Okay.
So if you've got a 3-lane road coming in, there will be 3 lanes around the roundel.
Okay. And there's a question about doing further development on islands within the roundabout, and I know we've had plenty of conversations. We would like to do more there. We just haven't at this time.
Yes, they're on the roadmap, but that's as far as we can say. So improvements to the splitters and the deflection are on the roadmap.
So there's a question about minimum pavement markings based on crosswalks and safest signs. I don't know if you, that's all the question says, Nigel, so I don't know if you can decipher
Okay,
that.
so vehicle tracking. In vehicle tracking, you have both crosswalks and the location of key signs like crosswalk, like give way, like roundabout coming, yield line signs that are required by most roundabout standards. That functionality is not in InfraWorks at the moment.
Okay. Let's see. You have a ton of questions here. So does InfraWorks create a report regarding roundabout criteria, for example, entry angle, IDC, etc.?
Not at the moment.
Okay. And there's a couple questions around turning lane support. If we, like, I guess it sounds like Civil 3D supports right turn into the roundabout. Was that?
So right-only turns, slip lanes, or bypass lanes, as they're called around the world, and I must say in the UK, left-only lanes. We're looking at how to do it, but that is not on the immediate roadmap, but it's regularly asked for.
Okay. And let's see here. Someone's asking if the design takes into consideration a particular design vehicle. So does the design vehicle matter, or what's driving the decision for the roundabout size here?
At the moment, there is no rules deciding which roundabout standard to use. So it's not looking at the design vehicle, but the standards are aware of the design vehicle requirements for going round the roundel section. And the standards that we're using are set to match the design vehicles that are laid out in the informational guide on roundabouts, which basically says that I can't remember which WB it is, but one of the articulated trucks and a school bus can go around the lanes.
Yep. Okay.
Yep.
Let's see. We got a few more here. Looks like we're getting sort of to the end. So somebody else has asked about overweight vehicle support and if vehicle tracking is taking those things into account, which sort of like AVT does in some of the vehicle tracking scenarios. So right now I can answer that one myself. Traffic simulation isn't looking at the same characteristics. It's really looking at traffic simulation as opposed to turning vehicle simulation through the roundabout. So something for us to look
and on
at.
the swept path side, we're not analysing overweight vehicles driving through the roundabout at the moment.
Yep. And maybe, Nigel, do you want to talk for a minute about what happens if you've put a roundabout in here? What you get in Civil 3D today if you take it over there?
At the moment, all I can say at the moment is watch this space. At the moment, if you do an IMX transfer between InfraWorks and Civil 3D 2016, it ignores the roundabout. You won't get an intersection, but you won't get a roundabout either. Okay. But this is an area that we are addressing. Just watch this space.
All right. There we go. And then somebody asked, we are recording today's session. It'll get posted up on the community forum, just like all the others. And then we have another question about quantities. So can you get earthwork quantities? So we have surface statistics inside of InfraWorks. So you could get a raw cut fill number from the base design data here, but we won't have any detailed quantity information like asphalt quantities or concrete quantities for curb or anything like that at the moment. So you could get a raw cut fill on the earthwork side based on what you see in the model right now.
It's exactly, roundabouts behave exactly the same way in that aspect as intersections do at the moment.
Yep. And then two different questions but similar topics. Support for different configurations of roundabouts. So somebody's asking about turbo roundabout support as well as ellipse style roundabouts. Do you have any comments there?
We do have turbo-ish style, which is spiral markings, but we don't put. Yes, we do have full spiral markings for turbo, but we do not support non-circular roundabouts at the moment.
Okay. And I think, yeah, so a question around divergent diamond. We definitely have had a number of requests around supporting divergent diamond intersections. Not really, not a roundabout, but an intersection type. I can't say no one will deliver on that, but we definitely, it's something we know need. There's a detailed question about some standards issues for the UK, Nigel. I think we'll take that one offline and maybe follow up with the user about that one, because it gets into some deep details. So I'm just looking at time. We're about 12:30. I'll switch over and do my portion of the demonstrating here about some of the changes to roads since the last time I was on one of these webcasts. And then if we have more questions at the end, we can go from there. So hopefully, can everybody see my screen, Nigel?
I can see your screen now.
All right. So a couple of improvements that I want to talk about. So the last time I did one of these webcasts, we talked about central turning lanes. So there was sort of some hacks you could do with the styles geometry to force a center turn lane in, but that didn't work with vehicle tracking, or not vehicle tracking, traffic simulation. Since then, we've done a number of improvements. So here I've just got an intersection, and you can see we've got the lane marking specified. So if I pick the intersection itself, and I just need to put myself into edit mode here, I'm in lane marking mode here. Now, it's a little tough maybe to pick out the highlight, but you can see when I hover over the entry and exit portions. Can everybody hear me? Sorry, my headset just told me I was on mute. We good?
We can hear you.
I can hear you.
Okay. Interesting. So you can see if I hover in the green section here, if I select, then we have control over these marking arrows. So if I wanted to make this lane exclusively left turn, I could make it exclusively left turn and update the model. Or if I wanted to make it left turn and straight through, I could do that as well and update the model. These changes that we're making here are reflected in traffic simulation. So the traffic behaviors and patterns will be based on these flow control inside of the intersections that we build. If, for example, we wanted to add a dedicated left turn lane now, it's really just a matter of me selecting the underlying road, and I'll look at my lanes forward, so you can see that's the lanes forward there. So I'll increase that to have a third lane, and we do a little intelligent switching here based on what we see the configuration to be, but you can see I now have one straight through lane, one left turn lane, and one right turn lane. If that wasn't quite the configuration that I was interested in, maybe I want two straight through and a right turn, or a right and a straight through lane. So I can change that configuration, and like I say, any changes that I make here to the configuration will flow through when we go and do traffic sim. So much easier, much more straightforward process than we had previously around the turn lane and turn arrows. So that's that topic. The other thing I want to talk about are ramps or merges and diverges. So here I've got a highway scenario. So you can see there's an overpass. I didn't do a lot of cleanup on the model builder model, so excuse the messiness of my model there. But if you look here, we've got a highway, and so it's the Everett Turnpike at the Autodesk office. Shakri is sitting. Oh, Shakri's sitting somewhere right about there right now. I'm in Boston today, but you can see here I've got the highway, and if I take a look at the properties for this particular road, there's a couple things that I want to point out. So my lanes backward count is set to 0. My lanes forward count is set to 2. So that's a forward-facing lane in that direction. And so if I pan over to where the traffic comes together, we now clean these up in a way that makes sense for a ramp scenario. So whether I have 2 lanes or 1 lane coming off, in this case it's a 2-lane diversion, so you can see the striping is correct, and we put in some a better cleanup than we would have previously. If I want to go ahead and drop that down to 1 lane, I can get just a 1-lane cleanup, so you get an off-ramp scenario that's much cleaner. So over here on the right, I purposely left one in sort of shoddier shape, so you can see, looks like I actually have the highway running the wrong direction. So you can see I've got my lanes running. Oh no, that's correct. Sorry, that's the northbound. So I've already preset the highway to have again 2 forward lanes, 2 backward lanes. If you're unfamiliar, the direction that we initially drew the road is what ends up determining forward and backward for those purposes. So somebody drew this from the east to the west in my current view. But as you can see right now, I have a strange thing happening with the intersection, right? It's showed up like a turn lane rather than a merge or a ramp scenario. And that's because I have lanes both forward and backward directions currently on this on-ramp. So if I decrease that down to no lanes backward, 1 lane forward, I will get, I should have got a much nicer merge than that. So let me just go tweak the geometry a little bit. There we go. That's better. So you can see, again, we've done a much better job of cleanup for that particular intersection there. So those ramps, really the key is we're looking for an acute angle where the 2 roads come together. So a narrow angle of approach will result in this cleanup behavior that shows as a ramp as opposed to sort of a T-junction or a normal intersection at grade scenario there. So those are a couple of enhancements. In general, you should see a pretty significant improvement in performance for the road editing scenarios. So a couple of the teams did a lot of work around both PVI edits and PI edits. So for example here, let me bring up my profile view and I'll show you one of the scenarios. So if I go ahead and make an elevation edit in Canvas, we have to update the model because we made the change in the model. However, you can see there's a toggle at the top of the profile view now called Auto Update Model. So if I make a number of profile view edits in the profile view, you can see we have placed this message, and I'll do it again because the message went away as soon as I hovered my mouse over it. But I can now make as many profile edits as I'd like in the profile view. And you can see you have 1 or more edits on the road profile, move the cursor out of profile view to refresh the model. So this way we allow you to batch up those model edits together so you can make a number of changes to your profile without having to have the model update each and every time. So a little sort of a performance enhancement slash improvement there as well. And then finally, the last one I want to talk a little bit about. The last time I did one of these webcasts, we talked a little bit about component roads, which is a capability that is in preview today. And so we have the ability, which I know, just noticing, I think I might have the preview turned off. Yep, it is. Let me turn it on. So if you have the road component model preview turned on, and you've already done some work with an existing road, oops, wrong, let me undo. I deleted the road instead of said edit. So let me go to edit. So if I've already done some work with a design road here, I've changed the style, manipulated it some, I can, yeah, it's going to make me restart before that option comes up. So bear with me. I'll just restart InfraWorks here. And we now have the capability to convert a style-based design into those individual components where you can manipulate the lanes and the shoulders or curbs on a one-on-one basis instead of editing the style as a whole. So as soon as my InfraWorks pops back up, I apologize, I reinstalled software and forgot to toggle that on. While we're waiting, Chalks or Nigel, are there some questions I can answer?
Yeah, I can ask you one question. The parallel, how close can the parallel ramp get before it joins? Willie Campbell is asking.
I don't know, Chakri. Do you know?
It is, the answer that I have is depending on the modeling that you are doing, Willie. If you are taking a parallel ramp as an acceleration ramp, you can take it as far as you want. But if you are bringing in it as a separate road, generator, there is no improvement compared to the previous releases. It's the same as before.
Yeah, so I think the snap value comes into play there, which I think is set at like 2 meters or something like that by default. So, any other questions? I'm just
There's
about
one
back.
question I think everybody can benefit. Where can I find which version is installed?
So now you're asking me stuff I can't remember, Chakri. Do we have it under help currently?
You can go to the application options.
Okay.
One way to is go to the application options, and in the application options there is an about button on the right.
About bots. Yep. So there. So this would be the 2016.4 that I have. So this shipped into customer hands when, Chakri, right around the start of December, if I recall, right?
This is February 8th.
Give it late January.
February 8th.
Okay, February 8th. Sorry, there you go. Probably left our hands start of December is what I'm remembering. But so I should have my options now because I turned on the component road preview. My apologies for that. But now if I select the road, you can see I have the option convert to component road. So if I select that, you can see I have one road in this case, and it's asking me for which street style I want to convert. In this case, it's a one-to-one match, so I just need to pick a particular assembly that makes what I'm interested in. So I'll just go 4-lane undivided, and I will say convert, and that road will be turned into a set of components. So I picked 4-lane undivided, so there's no shoulder, no sidewalk in that particular assembly view, but you can see now the component options that are available for manipulating individual lanes. For example, if I wanted to change a lane width rather than altering the style, I can change the lane width directly here in the model. So a way to step you forward from models that you've been working in those style-based roads and use them on the design front there. So I think with that, those were all the new things that I wanted to get through this afternoon. So we'll keep going on questions. If you want to fire them at me, I'll see what I can answer.
So there is one question do we support lanes that are like Jack Garcia says that are suicide lanes kind of thing, like the lanes that has can support both left and right turns depending on the direction and the proximity
Okay,
to intersection.
yeah, central bidirectional turning. Currently, we don't have a configuration for bidirectional turning. I mean, you can add a lane in the middle of the roadway there based on how you construct either your style or your components, but the traffic sim won't reflect that at the moment. We need to add some additional definition to do that. It's not there yet.
We've got a question on traffic signalization lighting at intersections and possibly roundabouts. Are we going to support it?
Oh, so can we show the signals with the actual lights? Yeah, definitely something that we would like to do in the future, I think. Not a current capability as far as matching a light pattern to the traffic sim that's going on, but something that we'll look at down the line, I would think.
I have a slightly off-topic question. Paul has asked, how is it to insert a bridge?
How easy or hard?
Easy.
Oh, it's very easy. So, for example, when I was playing with those vertical edits earlier, I managed to make my 4-lane highway an overpass here. So I'm just going to select the road, right-click, and I'm just going to say I want to add a bridge. And so at the base level, I can choose concrete or steel girder. So I'll just do a steel girder bridge from this point to this point. And I now have a bridge in my model once it finishes updating. There we go. So there's the steel girder bridge. If I zoom in a little, you can see there's the girders. And if I pick the bridge or particular components within the bridge, I can alter those as well. So you can see here it's a steel plate bridge. If I wanted to change to precast, I could. Right now it has no piers. If we perhaps needed a pier, I can add the pier, and it'll get added to the model. In this case, obviously having the pier in the middle of the roadway below isn't great, so I can reposition that pier. Anything within the bridge pretty well is selectable and modifiable. So I can pick the foundation, and I can change the foundation's properties, or I could pick a pier itself, and I could model or select a different pier configuration. So if you had a pier configuration, perhaps you wanted a arched wall, then I can click that and select, and we'll change the pier configuration to that arched wall shape. So there you can see the arched wall rather than the previous. So very easy to get a bridge model in, and the bridge team continues to make a number of enhancements around leveraging that data elsewhere once you've created an initial model with a bridge.
Okay.
There are quite a good number of questions on road markings and control over them, such as can I have a dashed line instead of dotted line? Can I have a double yellow instead of just one line? Is there anything you want to share, Nick, on that?
So depending, I guess, on how you want to manipulate things, you can have some control over those. The stock markings, as I might call them, that are based on styles, we don't have a lot of options. So essentially, if I come in to look at the style palette for a particular roadway, there. So for example, this is probably the one that we're looking at. So as of right now, we basically allow you to pick a lane marking material and turn it on or off. So you can see it disappears or appears as sort of needed. Using styles, I can manipulate lots of things and add different striping styles here. So I could add a new item, and I could make the track width sort of small, and I can set its material to be some kind of lane marking. So I'll turn off the stock lane marking so you can see what I'm doing. Looks like it's a little too small. I'll make it like 0.11. My metricness isn't as good as Nigel's, so it's not quite the right size. But I can manipulate those like that and add different markings in different locations. I can vary their offsets within the style, so there's some control there. On the component road side, I can do similar, but I do it by inserting a very narrow lane component with a different material. Obviously, all of that really will need some additional level of control that's independent of sort of inserting things this way. So, definitely more to come on the lane markings front, but today it would be really done by manipulating either style or component, depending on which area of the product you're leveraging and using. So that's probably what I would cover there.
Yeah. So
that is, if I recall, in the last webcast I did, I think I showed some tricks, or maybe the one before, I showed some tricks for how you can manipulate some of the style stuff a little deeper too.
Yeah. There is another question a couple of users, like participants asked Nick, is about the configuration, because our product seems to be very smooth as we are showing. So the question is, what are the recommendations for hardware to run the applications, processor, RAM, GPU?
Yeah, so I mean, here we'll go extreme, and I'll show you. I'm using a pretty good laptop, but my laptop is 2 years old. So here you can see I scored a 6.9 on the Windows Experience Index, so it's not a crazy fast machine, but a couple things to point out that are sort of key here. So I have an i7 CPU, so it's got a number of cores. Depending on different operations, things like regenerating the model, InfraWorks will use each of those cores. So if you have a multi-core machine, you'll definitely see faster performance on things like model regeneration. I've got 8 gigs of RAM on this particular machine. I would say for a reasonably sized model, I probably wouldn't want to be under 4 gigabytes of RAM. And for a very large model, like for instance, I've played with some models that are like the Boston metro area on this machine, and 8 gig of RAM is not enough in that particular case. But depending on how big or small you want up to a model to be, you can definitely slide the RAM scale around a little bit there. The other item on this particular machine that's important for this discussion, I have an NVIDIA graphics card, and if it lets me bring it up, off the top of my head I can't remember the exact model, but this should tell me, I believe, driver version. I can't remember which one it is. So I've got it's like a 500, what do I got? Must be a 2 gigabyte, oh, there it is, right there, Quadro K200M. So it's a Quadro card. It is a workstation graphics card, and that'll come into play more around what your video performance is like. So, for example, if I hop back to the application here, my ability to pan and orbit, you can see it's probably not so great watching over the live meeting here today, but I have really no performance in inhibiting behavior from my graphics card. So something with a couple gigs of graphics RAM and something in the workstation class tends to be the best support there. Any others, Shar?
My machine, just for completion, my machine was a slightly newer laptop desktop replacement machine, but was using its standard Intel card today.
Yep. Really, I think for the most part that comes down to model size. I've got a few, I don't know, 10 by 10 city blocks, something like that in this particular model. The performance is really quite reasonable on my machine. If I threw an entire city at this, it would work a lot harder. Okay, so.
Willie was asking a question on your bridge example. He was asking, is getting side barriers added to that bridge a simple matter of changing the style?
Yes. Yep. In this case, I think I actually did I forget if I think this one's already a component road. So they would be, you would be placing decorations. But if in the style case, that I don't know, let me just do one over here. So we'll bring this up. In the components case, I don't think the bridge team has released anything pre-configured yet, but in the case of styles, I know they already have some pre-configured options. So you can see here they've got these bridge deck options. So if I select one of those, you can see I get a bridge pre-configured with some guardrail type support. In this case, it's got a center sidewalk and some lighting. So there's some pre-configured style options there, but you can alter those, add new ones to your heart's content, and change it up as much as you'd like.
Yeah, and so looking at the questions, that seems to be about it. There is one on Roundabouts. I think this is addressed already. So yeah, that's pretty much about it. Yeah.
All right. So before we wrap up, so don't forget, the next webcast from the product team will be Ramesh showing point clouds in InfraWorks 360 on Wednesday, April 6th. Same time, and Eric will be publishing that registration link, I imagine, relatively soon. Perhaps once he gets off the plane that he's traveling on today, he'll be able to take care of that. But look for it on the community site, the forum, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. So thanks, everybody, for your time today. Hope it was helpful and informative, and we'll see you again in a couple of weeks.